Define me with all your words, then find me a lesson to be learned. You can brand me or burn me, and I won't let it hurt me.
Define me as what I am, and try me as just a simple man. I'm no harm to you, I'm just doing the best I can.
And if I'm defined by what I do, then what am I supposed to call you? The shadow of a broken past you abused.
And if I can stand on my 2 feet, I'll break the wall where we will meet. I'll document our combination for you.
We're starting this party tonight, where people will be undefined and love who they want when the judgment is done, and won't have to hide.
Starting this party right now, where people can shake off their doubts and send out their love as it moves through the crowd, and people can shout
that they love a man,
or they love a woman,
and no one will be judged for love, and I can't be judged for who I am. Define me with broad cliches,
but I won't undergo any hate for a stranger's mistake.
I've struggled through the boundaries of society's needs.
Now I'm not trying to please.
It's free. Define me as God's child.
I'm human, and we're all in the wild.
This earth is as much mine as yours in the end, so let's unite as friends. And if I can lie in nature's bed without the roses killing me dead, I think the earth has got a point, and we're a moving joint.
And if I can say my prayers at night, I think I'm doing something right. Let's open up a song of safety and carry through the night.
We're starting this party tonight, where people will be undefined and love who they want when the judgment is done, and won't have to hide. We're starting this party right here, where people will shake off their fear, and mass tolerance is replaced with resistance, and everyone cheers that they love a man, or they love a woman, and no one will be judged for love, and I can't be judged for who I am. You love a man.
We're starting this party tonight.
Love a woman.
People will be
And I will be judged for love, and I can't be judged for who I am.
We speak so often of brokenness in religious life. Let us speak today of wholeness. You are welcome here, all of you, every part of you beautiful just the way you are. Here, you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here. Nothing to prove to me or to the person sitting next to you or next to you on the screen or to the children or to anyone. You don't have to try to be witty or more quiet or more outgoing. You are beautiful. Every part of you beautiful, just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful just the way they are. You are extraordinary, each and every one of you, different from each and beautiful in your own beautiful way, breathtaking. Let us worship together. Good morning to you all. My name is Karma, and I'm honored to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalists of Central Delaware. As mentioned in our opening words, we welcome you and all of who you are into this virtual worship space. Our experience of this day and of this sacred time of connection is better because you are here. Today, we are kicking off the month of June, which is observed in most of the United States as LGBTQ Pride Month, which commemorates a riot that occurred 51 years ago at the Stonewall Inn, in which harassed and oppressed LGBTQ people fought back against police and launched a movement for liberation. It seems right to say aloud today that every time we gather as UUCD, we do so as a welcoming congregation. It also seems important to me to note, as we're witnessing other harassed and oppressed people rioting in the streets for justice, rioting in the streets for their very lives all across the nation, that we as UUCD are a community of faith committed to justice. Riots, as Dr. King said, are the language of the unheard, and we are trying as a community to listen to the voices that are unheard and those whose lives are undervalued and at risk. We are grateful for the technology that allows us to gather virtually during this time of social and physical distancing, and we affirm and celebrate that we remain a connected, vibrant spiritual community, even when we cannot gather together in our home sanctuary at Congregation Beth Shalom. Our church did not ever close because church is not a building. We have simply adapted so that we can continue the essential work of being an open and progressive faith community in Central Delaware and beyond. Let's all take a deep breath in our own environments. And let me welcome you again to this time of worship. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you've been, whatever you've done, whatever your religious beliefs are or aren't, and wherever you physically are on the planet right now, you are welcome here in this spiritual community. We are all enhanced by being together.
We light this chalice, and we remember those who lived lives of closeted struggle, those who worked and hoped for change and made some of those changes happen, those whose courage made them rise up at the Stonewall Inn, and those who died from bashings and diseases and never got to see those changes, never got to see marriage equality, to openly serve in the military, to watch characters like themselves on TV and in the movies. We light this chalice for rainbow people everywhere, past and future, and for all people who love.
Our opening song this morning is coming from the Los Angeles Gay Men's Chorus, and it's True Colors, one that I hope you know. Please feel free to sing out loud in your own environments as we listen to this music and sing it together.
You with the sad eyes,
So now join me in our unison affirmation, which we speak together each week. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
This morning for our story for all ages, I actually just asked my wife, Diane, to tell a couple of stories about her life and as a lesbian mom and to talk about pride. So we're gonna watch that by video since she's leading her own worship service at the same time.
Good morning, I'm Diane. I think Karma asked me to come and talk to you today because I'm a mom. I'm a lesbian and I'm a mom. Sometimes people don't think those two things go together very well. I have a daughter, Carly, and she grew up in our community. She grew up with gay people all around her. Her dads are two gay men. You might wonder about that, but I'm not going to get into that now. Carly grew up with me as her mom, and mostly I think that she grew up the way anybody would. She knew that she was loved and cared about and cared for, and I did all the typical things moms do. You know, I made her lunch, and I braided her hair, and I took her to school, and I talked to teachers, and mostly I just loved her. For Carly, I think that it was sometimes hard for her because she knew who I was, and I was pretty public about who I was. And she's not as public as me. But she took it in her stride, and she talked about me a lot. There were times when she really went out on a limb, and I remember when in Canada we were talking about our right to have to be married, that she sent a letter to the editor of the local paper talking about that her mom was a lesbian, and that she didn't think there should be any problem with me and my partner getting married, and that no matter what, even if the courts didn't think it was right, that she did, and really wasn't that all that mattered. She had a lot of fun when she was a child. I remember when a friend of mine came over, and we had spent the day talking, and then she was leaving, and she said she was going home to be with her husband, Peter. And Carly sat on the steps and started to laugh. Just a tiny little girl, laughing and laughing and laughing. And so my friend said, "Why are you laughing?" And she said, "Women's sleep with women's, men's sleep with men's. Women and men don't sleep together." Now my friend said, "Well, don't your grandma and grandpa?" And she said, "Yes, but they're old." So Carly grew up believing that we were like everybody else. She thought that when we were in pride parades, that the men in the parades that dressed in drag were fairy princesses. So the truth is, and the reason for this is that we're all the same. People look for ways to see something different in people. And so sometimes they look and they don't see the heart of a person, but they see something that they can poke at and set people aside and make themselves feel better than somebody else. That's not very good. And it doesn't work very well. It doesn't work well when you're at school, and it doesn't work well in life. The important thing is to always see the heart of people and to not let little things separate you from people. For lesbians, gay men, and bisexual people, transgender people, queer people, intersex people, all those people are just that, people like you. At this time of year, we celebrate pride because we've had to fight really hard to get to where we are today, where we can get married and we can have families. We've had to fight really hard. And so we now celebrate it with pride. And pride reminds us just how lucky we are, because there's people still in this world who are being harassed and sometimes killed because of who they love. So on this day when we're celebrating this community, I ask you to just look at people's hearts. And when you go out and go back to school, and if you see somebody being bullied, stand up for them. They feel alone. Let's all have pride. Pride no matter what. Pride for everyone. I hope you have a good day and a good Sunday, and that you celebrate with people in your community who are LGBTQI+. Bye-bye.
For the UU moment today, I want to offer a brief history of the UUA involvement in and support of LGBT people. You can read much more at uua.org. In 1967, the UU Committee on Goals conducted a survey on attitudes about homosexuality, and over 80% of those surveyed believed that homosexuality ought to be discouraged. Unfortunately, this is a reminder of where we started. In 1970, the UU General Assembly made some progress in making a resolution to end discrimination against homosexuality and bisexuals. In 1973, the General Assembly voted to create an Office of Gay Affairs staffed by actual gay people to resource the UUA. By 1979, the first openly gay UU ministers, Reverend Douglas Morgan Strong and Reverend Mark Beltini, were called to serve congregations in Augusta, Maine, and San Francisco, California. Keep in mind, they weren't the first gay people ordained, but the first whom congregations would call to serve as their ministers. In 1984, the General Assembly affirmed some ministers in presiding over same-sex unions before they were legal in the U.S. In 1989, the Welcoming Congregation Program was created to help congregations become more inclusive of the LGBT community. By 2000, more than 25% of all UUA congregations had become welcoming congregations. In 2002, Reverend Sean Parker Dennison became the first openly transgender person to be called to UU parish ministry. This is the official UU history, but Reverend Sean reached out to us and asked us to tell you this. They were not the first trans ministers. Others came before and after. These are some of the names of UU ministers who faced extreme barriers to UU ministry because they were trans. Leslie Phillips, Aaron Melby, Gwendolyn Howard, Lori Offant, Barb Greve. We told Sean that we would speak their names in our worship today. It is right to honor these courageous leaders. By 2006, more than 50% of all UUA congregations had become officially welcoming. And by 2012, that number reached 2/3 of all UU congregations, and there are more today. While all of these things reflect progress and affirm Unitarian Universalists as one of the more liberal and progressive faith communities on matters of sexuality and gender, there are still many closeted LGBTQ plus ministers and congregants, and not all UU congregations are welcoming. So today we celebrate these progresses at the same time as we hope and pray for a day when all queer people will have full inclusion and equality in Unitarian Universalism and our larger society.
When we are physically together, we generally invite you to come forward and light a candle and share with us your joys or concerns. Today, we'll adapt this slightly and ask you to share very briefly what is most on your heart right now, and light a candle in your own space. Through the action of sharing and kindling a flame, we give energy to our best thoughts, meditations, sympathies, celebrations, and prayers. We hold these as sacred in our collective hearts. We light one final candle for the joys and concerns that were not spoken by those of us here, and in solidarity with others in our community who could not be with us today.
Another central part of our worship, in person and online, is the opportunity we all have to practice the art of generosity. Our gifts to UUCD are what allow this congregation to thrive with a common vision to nurture our spirits, build community, and change the world. We are grateful to you for the many ways you support our community, including your financial pledges and offerings. Your gifts truly translate into lives impacted and changed. Every part of our ministry, from the worship that grounds us in our values, to the community gatherings that connect us, to our children's education, to our social justice outreach and actions, and more, are supported by your gifts. And today, we celebrate the ways that you help UUCD proudly witness to Central Delaware and the larger world that LGBTQ+ people are not only welcomed, but celebrated by a faith community, and not in spite of, but because of who they are. I personally give to UUCD because these things matter to me so much, and giving financially is honestly a spiritual discipline that makes me feel good, because I know it makes a difference. Thank you for the ways you continue to give, even and perhaps especially in these uncertain times. You may continue to write checks and mail them to us, or you can give online. There are instructions to do both of these things on our website at uucd.org. Just click Support UUCD on the menu bar. You can do that now during this offering song that's about to come up, or anytime that's convenient. We have a special guest musician for today, the Reverend David M. Glasgow. David is a gifted musician, singer, composer, and conductor. He has served in the past as the music coordinator for Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, and he continues to contribute to the broader UU world by leading and teaching with the Association for UU Music Ministries. He'll say a bit more about himself in this video that he prepared for us today. Thank you again so much for your generous offerings.
Well, hello, UUs of Central Delaware. My name is David Glasgow. I'm the music director out at the Unitarian Universalists of the Cumberland Valley here in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania, where I live with my husband, Mark. Thank you so much to your minister, Reverend Karma, for the invitation. Karma was a role model and an inspiration and a friend and a minister to me as we were going to seminary together, so I'm sure you already know how awesome she is. Wanted to sing a song for you today from Kinky Boots. It's a 2012 musical by Cyndi Lauper, which was based on a 2005 British film of the same title. Both of those I recommend highly to you. Both the musical and the film are excellent. The song I'm going to sing is called Not My Father's Son. It's sung in the show by Lola, the drag queen, as she's sort of introducing herself to Charlie, the other star of the show. And she's talking about her journey from her dad's expectations of what his son, Simon, would grow up to be versus the truth that became Lola. So I should say that Lola's truth is not my truth. I am not Lola, and her truth is not mine. But her story, her journey is very familiar to me, and I think it's very familiar to a lot of queer people around the world. How we hear and internalize the expectations of our parents, our friends, our family, our churches, our teachers, even other UUs, and we decide which of those expectations are realistic and which ones we need to reject, and how we're going to deal with the fallout when we do reject those expectations. So I'm sure you've already done some really good ally work with your congregation. And you know that being an ally is not just about hiring a queer minister. And you know that it's not just about printing a rainbow bulletin, rainbow triangle in your bulletin. And you know that it's not about finding a gay kid who's willing to worship with you and pinning a token gay badge on him and making sure his photo conveniently appears on the splash page of your website. Not that that ever happens. Being an ally is risky. It's humbling, it's tiring, and as you commit to doing that work, I really hope that you will practice listening more than speaking. I hope that you will plan to learn more than to teach, and I hope that you will work hard to remember that queer folks, just like you, just want a place where they can be. Just be their authentic, fallible, vulnerable selves. So, thanks for having me. When I was just a kid, everything I did was to be like him. Under my skin, my father always thought if I was strong and fought, not like some albatross, I'd begin to fit in. Look at me, powerless and holding my breath, trying hard to repress what scared him to death. It was never easy to be his type of man, to breathe freely was not in his plan. And the best part of me is what he wouldn't see. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what he dreamed of, with the strength of Sparta and the patience of Job. Still couldn't be the one to echo what's been done and mirror what was not in me. So I jumped in my dreams and found an escape. Maybe I went to extremes of leather and lace, but the world seemed brighter 6 inches off the ground, and the air seemed lighter. I was profound, and I felt so proud. just to live out loud. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what he dreamed of, with the strength of Sparta and the patience of Job. Still couldn't be the one to echo what he'd done and mirror what was not in me. The endless torrent of expectations swirling inside my mind pulled me down. I came to the realization, and I finally turned around to see that I could just be me. I'm not my father's son. I'm not the image of what he dreamed of, with the strength of Sparta and the patience of Job. Still couldn't be the one to echo what he'd done and mirror what was not in me.
Today's centering is a reflection on the survival and resilience of my LGBTQ clients. Words are important. The words we use to describe one another are important. These words may be helpful or damaging, depending upon the context. The words we use to describe ourselves are important as well, and they reveal a lot about how we see ourselves in community, how we may have been uplifted or torn down. In my work as a behavioral therapist, I might hear my clients tell me they are crazy or messed up by way of preparing me for what they are about to reveal. They often speak of a sense of shame, but they do not initially recognize their feelings of shame. It is just what they have been told all their lives. From their perspective, this is normal. My job is to help them question this. Who told you that, I might ask? Do you remember when you were first told you were crazy? I ask this to challenge my clients to imagine resistance to this programming. We need not internalize disabling identities that are ascribed to us by others, not even if those others are people in positions of authority, such as a therapist or our parents. This is why we have come to call our celebrations an acknowledgement of pride. Pride is the antidote to internalized shame. This is why we honor Gloria Gaynor, and a tear comes to our eye when we hear her sing, "I Will Survive," because we feel in our hearts that she is singing about us and our attempts to overcome adversity. When we see ourselves represented in popular culture, it is not out of a perverse need to convert anyone. It is because of a healthy need to see ourselves reflected in a world where we might not be treated as outcasts, but as respected members of society. We simply wish to recapture some lost dignity. When my clients come to confront internalized shame, they often cry out, they only want to be seen as normal. But you always were, I tell them. When my clients are able to finally release the notion that they are damaged goods, they also come to recognize that the slightly different perspective they bring to their understanding of the world may in fact be a fabulous gift to others, particularly to the narrow-minded folks entrapped by their own absolutist and binary thinking, male, female, gay, straight. For those who insist the world only exists in shades of black or white, we want to welcome you to a world of glorious color.
Okay, now for a reading from the Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins. This is one of the many gifts LGBTQ plus people have to offer the world. We were fortunate enough to have to question prejudices against us and learn to believe in our sacred value. And once we did that work, we then had the skills to question other beliefs, especially beliefs that give privilege or power to one group over another. Men over women, US over other countries, straight people over LGBTQ plus people, Christians over non-Christians, etc. The church teaches, or the Bible says, or everyone knows, can no longer be the final word for us. Queer people have the ability and perhaps the responsibility to demonstrate the courage it takes to ask questions and to believe that our questions are more important than pre-packaged answers. And those of us who call ourselves religious must also ask the questions that will keep religion from being a tool of oppression against any group ever again.
My wife, Stacy, placed the sign above the little bracket that holds keys. It says, "Don't look back." Don't look back. It's painful back there. Go ahead, stay in the present. I don't have much to offer the past. You can't change the past, but much was learned. I didn't remember until I looked back and read some of what I wrote 25 years ago, how very angry I was, and how this anger must have spilled out in the words I spoke. It spilled out in the words I wrote about Matthew Shepard, who was a gay guy who was beaten and tortured and tied to a fence before he died in Wyoming. That was in 1998. I wrote, he was named by the ponderous rock of ages, heaved from testamental pages, stoned to death by pious lunatic impostors with unimaginable rages. There beside the stillest waters and pastures green and rare, he did not wake up that morning in Wyoming's frigid air. I am remembering that our virus 25 years ago was killing thousands of beautiful and talented people. Are some people still trying to say that God is punishing those who just don't live right or love right or are in some way different, non-conforming to the straight white majority? Are there some people who are still considered just not worth saving? I remember that 25 years ago, I was part of a UU church in Delaware that was trying to become a welcoming congregation, which means becoming welcoming to GLBT people. As much as I appreciated the effort on the part of this congregation, I had doubts. I had questions. How do we do this and promote togetherness and fellowship? Are we dividing ourselves up into groups instead of being one big human family? How does our group feel about your group? Do you feel alienated, threatened, awkward? And also, what kind of a risk am I going to be taking by being out here in Delaware? I told them some of my story and some of my fears and about things that were always had to be in the forefront of my mind and they might not have to think about, because the dangers for me weren't dangers for them. They eventually did become a welcoming congregation. I think it was after I'd moved back to Pittsburgh and had been involved in other things for a while. It was good to hear. There were some changes during those 15 years I was in Pittsburgh. I got married 6 years ago. We drove from Pittsburgh to Cumberland, Maryland to get married after having been together 44 years because it looked as if Pennsylvania was never going to allow same-sex couples to marry. What a relief it was to have that piece of paper, but we thought we might have to move to Maryland or another state that would recognize it in order to get some of the protections the marriage is supposed to provide. Since then, our piece of paper has become recognized by every state, and more importantly, the federal government. It still seems a strange and joyful occasion to file joint tax returns. I'm back in Delaware now, and it seems different than it did 25 years ago. I don't encounter as many of the things that used to make me fearful. Delaware has now become one of the 23 states where employment discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity is illegal. I'm a member of UUCD, a group of people among whom I feel welcome, accepted, and safe. I'm thankful that I have been able to give up some of my anger.
I came out of the proverbial closet in 98 or 99 to my very out dorm neighbor by sitting her down and asking, "What is it about me that makes you think I'm straight?" I remember thinking then that I'd finally made it, that from then on life would make sense. Everything about me that had felt off or wrong would now be right. And to a certain extent that was true. All the feelings I'd had for women all those years now did make sense. It wasn't until I met Kelly, my neighbor, that I actually understood, oh, other people have these feelings and they actually date one another, get into relationships. This is normal. So, Newark, Delaware, first kisses, first relationships, an ever so brief introduction to the concept of activism. I participated in the Day of Silence, a day where students take a vow of silence to protest harassment and discrimination of LGBTQ students in schools. A young woman walked up to me at some point in the day, read my sign about the number of LGBTQ youth who commit suicide, and asked, "Is that all?" I, of course, could say nothing, and actually it was some moments later before I really understood how hateful she had been. This was new to me. In Seattle, Washington, I lived in a condemnable apartment building lovingly referred to as the Asnov, Casanova minus its C and 2 A's. It was there that I participated in daily conversations about everything: capitalism, socialism, anarchism, queer everything, Buddhism, racism, sexism, indeed every ism that there is, I was introduced to there. A friend decided there wasn't enough genuinely queer porn in the world, so decided to make one in my living room. My roommate, Jamie, became James. My neighbor auditioned for and eventually became employed by the Lusty Lady, to date the only unionized strip club, sadly now closed. I began writing and performing at the Seattle Spit, an open mic at the Wild Rose, one of the oldest lesbian bars on the West Coast. In Austin, Texas, I continued performing, becoming Chaz Pizzazz, a drag prince, never felt much like a drag king, who brought sword fights, dancing robots, and space cowboys to the stage, as well as a much-needed happy ending for the movie Brokeback Mountain. It was in Austin I began delving into spiritualism. It was in Austin I knew members of the Black Bloc, Antifa. where I read the Communist Manifesto and flirted briefly with becoming a card-carrying socialist. It was in Austin I attended Gay by Gay Gay, a queer-themed side event to South by Southwest, held in some friend's backyard. Annie Simpson dragged me out of that event so she could plant one on me. I did not complain. It was also in Austin, early on, that I was asked how I identify. My response of "I don't" was greeted with, "Oh, okay." See, the identity aspect of all this has always bothered me. Why must I identify at all? I thought taking on an LGBTQ identity was going to solve all my problems, set everything straight, pun intended, become my home, and it didn't. Because as I went along, I realized that there was so much more to me that needed to be discovered and understood. I needed breadth, perspective. That, of course, came when I left the country. Queer, however works, has stuck with me. I call myself that, and it feels true, appropriate. I remember realizing at some point in Korea that I was weird everywhere. I have shed, wiggled out of, ducked under, or otherwise avoided labels, categorizations, identities for all my life. Because if I become who you want, who makes you comfortable, then am I really being me? Can I really see things clearly? And I think this is actually the queerest thing about me, and my greatest gift to the world, my unceasing drive to be honest, authentic, myself.
So, hi everyone, my name is Aaron. I'd like to share an experience I had as a transgender person. But I'll start off with defining a term that might not be too common in the media. So it's the word cisgender. A cisgender person is someone whose gender identity matches the sex they were assigned at birth. So basically it's the opposite of transgender, and you might hear people say cis for short, and that's what they're saying. So I personally am a non-binary transmasculine person. Transmasculine describes a transgender person who was assigned female at birth, but aligns more closely with masculinity, while not necessarily fully identifying as a man. I'm also bisexual, but that is unrelated to my gender identity as a non-binary or transmasculine person. As for pronouns, some non-binary people, just some, use they and them, which I do, or you can just say Aaron. Since I'm transmasculine, he and him is okay if it would otherwise lead to ambiguity. So I'm not in the military, but even so, back in 2017, when I heard about the trans military ban, I was actually personally hurt by that. It wasn't just anger or disgust or indignance that I think we all would feel. I felt real self-doubt. I thought, wow, if we're so hated that you can even be a soldier in the US military and still be discardable, then maybe I'm not worth anything. But then I realized, what would I say to another trans person to comfort them if they said that about themselves? Wouldn't I insist that, no, that's ridiculous, you are worth something, you are loved, you matter, you are not broken? So shouldn't I have that same compassion for myself? In Mahayana Buddhism, we make a vow that begins, sentient beings are numberless, I vow to save them all. It's an expression of the desire to be kind and compassionate towards everyone. Aren't I a sentient being too? I want to offer this question to the world. Aren't you a sentient being too? It made me hopeful that there were trans men and women in the military who publicly protested the trans military ban. They had that self-affirming spirit too. But for me, what contributed to healing the personal hurt the ban caused was the public protest by some cisgender people in positions of power in the military. Whether we're talking about the military or any other stratified organization or institution, openly defending others' rights is a big deal because there could very well be consequences, losing a job or your position, ostracism, amongst other things. Allies in positions of power might be taking a risk when they want to achieve systemic level change. I want us to actively encourage potential allies to be brave and let them know that we will support them when they come out too. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Aaron. And Rose and Lindsay, for your sharing. The story that I want to tell you all, I hope will make you feel proud as UUCD. So let me set the stage for a minute. You see, I've been a professional queer for about 27 years. Since the time I came out at around age 19, my queer identity has been part of my public and professional life. That's whether I wanted to be or not, that's what I've been known as. As a young lesbian living in Oklahoma, I was one of the only women at that time willing to be out. And so the television and print media used to call me whenever they wanted the lesbian perspective on something, as if there's any such thing as one lesbian perspective on anything. Get three of us in a room and you'll know that's true. But since then, as a somewhat public figure, among other things, I've had my home vandalized, I've been spit on in public, I was denied admission to a religious college based on my personal statement that I was a lesbian. And then I subsequently fought that institution successfully in the national press. And I've spent the last 20 years, more or less, being a queer religious activist in a world where religion is one of the largest sources of anti-LGBTQ plus hatred and oppression. In seminary, I was honored to be the preacher of our graduating class, and during my sermon, several students protested, wearing white robes, holding placards. The seminary didn't know what to do about that. It was a first for them. And so I preached in a chapel whose walls were surrounded by hate speech, proclaiming me and those like me an abomination. Now, I don't say any of that to make you feel sorry for me at all. In fact, please don't do that. I have enjoyed every moment of my journey, even the difficult parts, because they have formed me into who I am. And it's been a very long time since I've personally been ruffled by that kind of nonsense coming my way. Now, here's the part about you, UUCD. You called me to be your minister. Knowing all of that, knowing who I am, and knowing that what you see is what you get. And this is no small matter. It's not a small matter, and I really want you to hear that. What you may not know is that on only the second Sunday I was with you, following a very brief press release in the Dover News about my being hired as your minister, I was handed an envelope that had been sent to Congregation Beth Shalom to my attention. And I thought, how nice, a welcome packet. But instead, I opened it to find, oh, so familiar, hate mail. Among other things, it included a collection of Bible verses telling me that I was, once again, an abomination. It's like these folks don't realize I've actually read those Bible clobber passages at least 1,000 times, and even in their original Hebrew and Greek languages. But anyway, receiving this hate mail in a UU context, right before I was about to lead worship, was a shock to me. Not because I haven't had that happen before, but because I doubted that you had. And at once, I understood a bit more about Dover and a lot more about your courage in hiring me. This is what I want you to feel proud about. See, pride is not only about LGBTQ plus people coming to self-acceptance. It is about allies and communities that don't have to do that, choosing to do it because it is right, even at some personal risk. And so today seems like a good day for me to say thank you. You are changing the world for people like me and people who have not had my experiences, who still wonder if they matter, and if they can be who they are and also be part of a faith community. You are answering both of those questions with a resounding yes. And I hope that you will take pride in what you are doing to change the world for the better. Thanks for sticking with us a little longer than our normal services are. I'm going to transition us into a closing song, which is again from popular music. It's the song Beautiful by Christina Aguilera, and it'll be on video. Again, I want to encourage you to sing along with this song. Sing loud in your own environment so that we can join in this safe act of singing together, and listen to the words as well.
every day is so wonderful, and suddenly it's hard to breathe. Now and then I get insecure from all the pain. I'm so ashamed. I am beautiful.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again.
Our closing words this morning will be responsive, and the phrase that you're to respond in your own environment, if you will, is may we live the spirit of pride. So I'll speak and then I'll just move my hands in this direction if you can see me, and ask that you say along with me, may we live the spirit of pride. So here we go. With gratitude for the freedom to be our true authentic selves, may we live the spirit of pride. With the courage that comes from challenging fear, may we live the spirit of pride. With sorrow for those who could not be here with us today, and in honor of those who died of AIDS or lost their lives to hate crimes or suicide, may we live the spirit of pride. With grief for those whose pain was unbearable and who left us too soon, may we live the spirit of pride. Looking ahead to the justice still withheld, may we live the spirit of pride. with the confidence that a sense of community can banish isolation and loneliness, may we live the spirit of pride. With the rainbow flag flying high, a sense of beloved community among us, and the joy that comes from making new connections, may we live the spirit of pride. Our virtual worship has ended, but our connection to one another and the earth endures. Go blessed to be a blessing for others.